I think people have to sort of wake up to the fact that all this digital dust that follows us around, we need to be the owner of that dust, and we need to stop letting people just vacuum it up without consequence. There are too many brokers and too many other organizations that want to know about us, and that's okay, right? But if they're going to vacuum up that information, there need to be rules around.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Engatica interview series. I'm your host, Kimberly, and we're really glad to have you join us today. We have with us a very special guest and some interesting topics that he's going to really talk about and he's really passionate about. We have with us Jeff Jockisch, the data privacy researcher and co-host of YBYR. A very warm welcome to you, Jeff.
Great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kimberly. It's wonderful to be here today, talk about AI and ChatGPT and all things interesting.
That is amazing. So before we dive into our crazy interview with Jeff, let me tell you what the series is all about. The Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world, a platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help you grow your business. Come be a part of our community where we learn, share, and grow together. My first question to you, Jeff, and let's kickstart this conversation with the first and the only question that is right now trending is, can you discuss the possible potential implications of AI and machine learning on data privacy?
Yeah, that's a big question, I guess. I think that's what a lot of us are pondering. I think, Kimberly, that there are maybe three different places that privacy issues might arise when we think about AI. First, on the training data itself, right? The privacy of data in the large language models that are used in the training corpuses, right? Where did the training data come from? Does it contain personally identifiable information or personal data at all? And what can be done if it turns out that that data is potentially biased or inaccurate? Right? That's one piece, right? The second piece is the interaction data with us as we interact with those models, the privacy of data gleaned from us while interacting with the AI models. Are these services collecting and processing highly sensitive details from the prompts that we provide, associating that information with our emails or phone numbers? Are they storing it indefinitely? There's a possibility that employees also might share proprietary, confidential trade secrets when having conversations with, chatbots, ChatGPT, things like that. So companies are a little concerned about that. And then the third thing that I think a lot of people have not maybe thought about yet is with a lot of these chat services, you can connect it to proprietary data sources, right? So we've already seen ChatGPT, for instance, connected up with Bing search engine, right? And so you've got a large language model, but it's actually accessing things like the live internet, right? Well, you could also connect that to, say, your intranet, right? Or your own corporate data sets, right? So when you do that, what is the privacy of those corporate or confidential data sets that we give the model access to? Is the model learning from those pieces of data? I mean, maybe it's okay if you're connecting it to just regular data. What happens if you connect it to your human resource information systems? Is it learning from that? Interesting questions, right? So there's a lot of questions about privacy of the data and how these different chat models might work. And obviously, I think that they could be tuned in a lot of different ways to either, have privacy there or not have privacy there. So, what ChatGPT does might be completely different from how another model might work.
Correct. Thank you so much, Jeff, for actually breaking down this entire process into three very vital parts. And you, focused and spoke about in the first section about how ethics also plays a very essential part. How do you approach the ethical considerations surrounding data privacy, such as the right to be forgotten?
Well, I think that's a good question. The ethical problems, let me pause there for a second. Kimberly, I want to actually add something to the previous answer before we move on to the ethical question.
Yes.
I know this is actually going to be a little bit of a longer answer, but the other answers are going to be a little bit shorter. So I think this is going to be okay, right?
Yes.
So sort of continue to the answer to the other question to discuss the potential implications of AI and machine learning on data, right?
Yes.
So we have those sort of three different sections, right, that we should be concerned about, right? The training data, the interaction with data, the proprietary data, right? But what are the larger issues that we need to grapple with within those three areas, right? The first is, how is the data gathered or scraped, right? Is the data scraping model used gathering data in violation of laws like the GDPR, right? Could it violate consent or copyright? Some people, perhaps many people, think that it does, right? I'm not generally in this camp for two reasons, right? One, while it's using vast quantities of scraped data, most of that data is not personal information, right? It's a lot different use case than Clearview AI, when it's scraping all of our faces, our biometric information, to do facial recognition, for instance, right? So what data is in those scraped files matters, right? If they scrape Facebook or LinkedIn, that's maybe a different story, right? If I can ask the chatbot where my neighbor lives and what he posts about, that's a big privacy issue.
Oh.
Still, these models may not scrape the personal data of everyone. They will know about celebrities, right, and people in the news. It's inevitable that some personal data is going to get swept up, right? Likely more and more data about you and me over time, right? Newspaper articles, quotes, bios from websites, conference announcements, lists of attendees, right? So it's going to scrape up, right, personal data, right? But the second issue here, right, is that large language models are also not storing any of that data, right? What it does do is, though, connect words together using probabilities and tokens. It uses that data to build a model, but you can't extract that data back specifically, right? It's gone, right? That's the good thing, mostly, right? Unless the data is wrong or biased, and then we need to edit or remove it, right? Which sort of gets to the question that you want to ask, I think, about the right to be forgotten, right? So, so let's talk about that now. So I think that's the second question that you wanted to ask me.
Yes, the second question to you is, how do you approach this ethical consideration surrounding data privacy and such as the right to be forgotten?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest issue here, right, is I expect that this is going to evolve in a way that allows people to individually opt out of training models using something like a DMCA, Digital Millennium Copyright Act takedown request. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about this, but I think that's how it eventually evolves in the future, is that these chat models are going to move forward. They're going to end up scraping up data. Maybe we can try to filter out a lot of the personally identifiable information of people that aren't, covered in the news or aren't covered as celebrities. But individuals, right, are eventually going to get swept up a little bit. And I think we have to have a mechanism for them to be able to opt out of that, right? Maybe even some of the celebrities are going to want to, based upon GDPR law, like giving them the right to do so, the right to be forgotten, right? And so we need to have a mechanism to do that. And I think it's something like an opt-out request. What's really interesting, though, is that I think the model builders are going to have to build their chatbots, their large language models, such that they can be redeployed very quickly every, I don't know, every couple of weeks, every couple of months, such that they can do all of these opt-outs and retrainings quickly, right, to pull all that data out. Sort of like Google has to redo all their search engine indexes, right, every time something changes, which is like, daily, hourly, right?
Correct.
I think that's going to how it's going to work, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Your insights have really helped break down this entire process. So thank you so much, Jeff. Diving into my next question is, can you throw light on the role of blockchain in improving data privacy and security?
Yeah, I like to talk more about distributed ledger tech than blockchain in particular, right? Here's the thing, right? Databases suck, in my opinion, right? On an intrinsic level, data has no protection. It's a piece of information that can be shared, and when you share it with someone, it can be copied and shared and copied and shared and copied and shared indefinitely, right? That's the beauty of information on the web. But when that information is personal information, it's terrible, right? It's a bane for everyone in the privacy world, because it can be information about you and me that we don't want to be shared. And the only thing we can do right now is trust whoever we give it to, or whoever takes it, that they won't copy it. But that's not how the world works right now. And you give your information to one organization, and you might, be able to trust them, or you might not. Generally, with data brokers, you can't trust them. You give it to one of them, and it ends up in the hands of 1,000 of them.
Correct.
Right? Blockchain and distributed ledger technology can eventually do for us, right, is bring that cryptography down to the data level, right? And what it's going to do for us is allow us to actually secure our data in ways that we have not been able to do so. People like to sort of laugh at NFTs, right? And people spending $1 million on a picture of a monkey, right? And it is pretty damn funny, in my opinion. But what that technology ultimately enables is the ability of you and I to secure our personal information, give it to a brand, give it to a vendor, right? And actually maintain control of it, to put controls on it, to say, hey, I'm going to give you, Facebook, this piece of personal information about me, but you can only use it for these purposes for this amount of time, right? And when that expires, unless you ask me for that permission to be extended, or for those use cases to be expanded, you can't use it any longer. That information expires. Right? That's what blockchain technology and is going to give us.
Correct. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. It was really helpful. How did you stay up to date with the latest research and advancements in data privacy? Like, really need to know, because the internet could be sometimes really overwhelming with a lot of information coming in, a lot of news coming in. What is your go-to resource bucket?
Yeah, that's a tough one for everybody, right? For me, the fire hose is just so big. It's really not so much about being able to catch up. It's being able to try to find a way to keep up without being overwhelmed. So I think that the way that I do that best is by curating a really good set of people that I follow on LinkedIn. Generally, I don't recommend social media as a good way to get news, but LinkedIn has actually turned out to be a really good social network for interest-based social interactions. And you know how Facebook is like a friend graph, right?
Yeah.
Well, Twitter is sort of an interest graph, right? And LinkedIn is an interest graph as well. Twitter has got its problems, you know, certainly LinkedIn has some as well. But if you connect with the right people, you can actually get a really good news feed out of LinkedIn. Maybe that'll change over time, but right now it's pretty great, especially for the privacy world. The other way that I actually get a lot of my news is through following podcasts about privacy and security. And you can really catch up well if you have the time to spend to listen to privacy news feeds and podcasts like that. So that's really where I get the bulk of my information. And then, of course, there's lots of other articles and stuff that you have to read, you know, based upon what you get from those other sources, right? So you can't just go to those. You have to then follow that up, right?
Right. Thank you so much, Jeff. I'm sure this information is really helpful to our audience, and we can too stay tuned to, you know, like the podcast that you spoke about and other articles. Can you discuss with us the challenges and limitations of anonymizing data to protect privacy?
Yeah, well, I have pretty strong viewpoints here, right? I don't really believe that you can anonymize data in any effective way any longer.
Okay.
I mean, if you have a data set that has more than a few points of data on any one individual, anonymizing it really is sort of impossible. I mean, you can anonymize that data, right? But anybody who has any real skills can take that to a data broker and reverse that anonymization. And so I just don't think that it's all that viable as a technology any longer for a data set that has, you know, lots of data points in it. Now, maybe it's okay if the data doesn't include any really, quote, sensitive information, but I think you and maybe the rest of the privacy world is starting to realize that virtually any piece of information can become sensitive in the right context, right? So yeah, I don't believe much in anonymization anymore.
Thank you so much for your views on this topic. Are there any other sound bites that you would like to share with our audience before we wind up?
Well, I think maybe just one. You know, I'm the co-host of YBYR, and that stands for Your Bites, Your Rights. I think people have to sort of wake up to the fact that all this digital dust that follows us around, you know, we need to be the owner of that dust, and we need to stop letting people just vacuum it up without consequence. There are too many brokers and too many other organizations that want to know about us, and that's okay, right? But if they're going to vacuum up that information, there need to be rules around it. And right now, the federal government hasn't been acting fast enough to secure that information and our rights to that information.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Your insights were really valuable. Thank you so much for your time and effort to talk to us and answer all these new questions that have been popped up by the community. So thank you so much, Jeff.
Take care.
For more content, subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon so you get access to exclusive content coming from thought leaders from around the globe. Stay tuned. We'll see you with a new expert soon. Thank you.